gets
So
the day
let's go.
ready.
Dallas, what was your favorite part of the trip?
Favorite part of the trip was bombing that hill on my longboard.
Oh my God.
Hands down. Watch out.
Oh my God, that is so.
My balls were hanging heavy that day. Tell you what. Yeah, that was the freest I've ever felt. It was a mix of like terrifying, but also like the coolest achievement I've unlocked in a long time.
Was the almost fucking up part, the almost dying part of the pleasure? Like, was not being super skilled at that specific task? Like, you were skilled enough to pass it, but there was still like a lot of rolling the dice?
I never thought I was going to die. Like, I was pretty confident that even if I fell at that speed, I would be okay. I was just afraid of falling, for sure. And the scariest part was, like, there was just, like, a sand patch near where I was getting to my fastest. So I started getting speed wobbles, and I noticed there was sand on the ground. So I'm shaking my longboard back and forth at, like, top speed at that point.
Let's back up and just explain for anybody listening. So we're driving around these nice big old long hills, right? Mm-hmm. We stop at a point so they can go boarding, Dallas and Seth. Seth is boarding for a little bit, and he'll board for like 10 seconds and like sprint off because he says that the wobbles are getting too strong. It's just too intense. This hill's too steep.
It was fucking steep.
And I forget exactly when, how, and why, but at some point, Dallas just goes for it from essentially the top of the hill and just commits.
All right, so what happened was we were going around this bend when Seth was trying to longboard. And like he just said, he just kept going on, jumping off, going on, jumping off, going on, jumping off. And I'm watching Seth, and I'm like, man, he's going pretty fucking fast. And I was like, I want to try that. I want to see how long I can go before I have to jump off. So that's when when we get around this bend and it just starts going straight downhill, it's pretty much like the peak of this fucking hill. And I was like, I'll see how long I can get, like, carving back and forth as much as I can. And then I got stuck. So I started going and immediately picked up way too much speed to like comfortably run off because it was so steep to where running down that hill is dangerous. Mm-hmm. Like if I were to just start running down that hill, myself. I would put my body in danger. Mm-hmm. So anyways, I'm on this rickety old longboard. It's dude, I've had that longboard for like years, mind you. Everything's rusty on it. Everything that can have rust has rust. And so I start out. So I do like a couple good turns, and then when I'm like 5 in, I'm like, okay, I have to stop turning because the more you turn, for me personally, the more I turn, the more my legs will wobble. So I wanted to be as stable as possible. So I just locked in, and I was like, I wasn't flexing everything, but you ever like brace, like, you know what I mean? Like you're not like necessarily flexing everything, but you're like leaning back a little bit and you're just like ready. It's almost like a fighting stance, just like really exaggerated.
If you can get into a stance where you're ready to jump in a direction, right?
Yeah, where it's just like a lot of my weight's back, but I'm not leaning back, but like I'm like just like low, and because I wanted to be like not too low to where I'm picking up as much speed as possible. Like I still wanted to be big.
Not
like,
when Centauro like crouches down and
yeah. I mean, you saw me. I just stuck my arm straight out. I was like, this is the most I can slow myself down right now. I was like, this is
fucking skydiver.
I was like, this is the epitome of God help me, dude. It was so bad. I'm literally going like full speed, which was, mind you, would you say like 40, 50, like mid 40s?
I don't know, because it can be weird, man. Like, I can go down this hill and I'll feel really fast, but I imagine if someone put a speedometer on me, I'm only going like 15 or 20. But it can be because think about sprinting as fast as the fastest person who's ever sprinted. It's like 28, 29 miles per hour, right?
Is it that fast?
Yeah, Usain Bolt. That's I googled his record a while ago, and he's close to that. So if you were doing that, that's going to feel fucking crazy. So you had 10 miles per hour to that. You're 10 miles per hour faster than the fastest man who ever ran. And that's 38. That's pretty fucking fast.
Dude, it was like, because like I snowboard, and I've gone faster than that on a snowboard easy because it's a lot like, and not as scary. You know, if I fall, I'm hitting forgiving. Snow. That wind feels a certain way. And that wind resistance of me going so fast on a snowboard, I was feeling that longboarding. That's how I knew I was going fast. Like when I realized that sticking my arms out was actually slowing me down a noticeable amount, I was like, that's how I knew I was in like the danger zone. Yeah. It was literally like I was like, whoom, and I felt myself go like, zoom, and I was like, oh no. So I was like, all right, if that's happening, like I definitely can't stick like, because like usually I'll stick my foot down and I'll like grind to a stop. But that was just like no chance of that. There's nothing. So I had to just lock in. And dude, that hill was long. That was the biggest problem. That shit was like hundreds of feet of just. And then it eventually just like barreled out into like another turn, but it like went uphill enough to where I could run off. But like right before I ran off again was like the apex of the fucking down part, and it was just a sand pit. Hit the speed wobbles, dude. In my head, I was like, "This is gonna." I was literally in my head. I wasn't worried. I was like, "I'm going to fall, and it's going to hurt."
That matter of fact part of your brain,
just like,
yeah.
I was just like, I'm sitting there. Literally my board's going like this, like back and forth multiple inches with like a split second, just like, and I'm like, "This is gonna fucking hurt." And then I just like get done, and I'm like, I like ride over. As soon as I was over the sand pit, my whole body was like, "Whoa, bro, we're still on this thing." So I fucking jump off like not full speed, but I was not going as fast anymore, but still pretty fast. And then I stopped. The crazy part was there was a car behind me, and they were like driving normal speed, and I was just staying in front of them. I was just like, They yelled at me afterwards. They passed me, but I was too ecstatic to even realize that there had been a car behind me. Like I got off my longboard, but I was just like, "Fuck yeah!"
We just drive down the hill after Dallas and just find him screaming on the side of the road. It's like in pure adrenaline.
Like, yeah.
I was that's a great feeling, man.
There was no one around me, but I was literally just like, "Did you fucking see that?" Talking to literally no one. And I was just like, "That was the fucking craziest shit I ever seen."
All the little spirits inside of you. Yeah, so fucking.
Wow. Dude, my every receptor was pleased. I don't know, like, there's nothing else to just.
That's such a weird thing to fucking contend with. Because, okay, the most enjoyable part of the trip for me was when I was on the rocks, pretty much. Like those big-ass boulders. Yeah. And you're climbing around, and there's a similar sort of... like, in both of those, okay, what is there? There's a lot of danger. You have to be super focused, or you're gonna... The damage is very real. Death could pretty easily be what happens next. And that was also, like, the most enjoyable part of the trip. It's a very strange part of our nature.
it's there was a part too when you were sleeping, me, Chubbs, and Seth went out to longboard. That shit was pretty fun as well. It was more dangerous because it was dark and we couldn't see. Mm-hmm. So imagine just like longboarding at like pretty fast speeds, probably like 15, 20.
In country dark.
And it's just like, better hope to God there's not a fucking rock there.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so fucking, it's so bad. And we were literally like riding with Seth had a headlamp. Mm-hmm. I had my phone. Chubbs had his phone. And you know that road where the rock area was by the ocean? We did that road, dude. We went down that at 3 a.m. or some shit. Mm-hmm. And it was so scary.
Are you talking about the pebbly road that goes through the woods?
No, the one right after.
Mm-hmm. That all the cars go down like 40, 50? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was cool.
Oh.
Every fun part was definitely dangerous. Like if you ask me about any type of fun we've had on our trips, it's always going to be one of the dangerous things we've done. It's
because we stopped at some cool food places and that was really enjoyable, right?
Yeah.
But if you're to compare it to these,
it doesn't make me feel like I'm having a full body orgasm 18 times over, though. I'll tell you that much.
Oh, dude, and it's so fucking weird the fact that you can, like, okay. If I take this longboard and I go to the top of this hill, just some big hill nearby, I can get on it and I'm safe, I'm fine. I can start riding for a bit, I'm safe, I'm fine. And I can reach that point of like critical mass that you were describing earlier, and I'm totally fine up to that point. And without really noticing much, I've just passed that point where, okay, you jump off, you're probably going to fuck yourself up right now. You keep riding, there's a good chance you fuck yourself up right now. And you have blissfully like ridden into this where everything was totally fine 2 seconds ago. It's just weird that you can strap yourself on and be like, all right, I'm going down this ride. But I don't know, for me at least, it doesn't really, like, I've done jumps and shit like that where I've endangered myself more than I knew I was going to the second before I did a jump. If I'm trying, I don't know, outside, I'm doing some weird gymnastic shit on the lawn, like jumping and flipping in some weird techniques. There'll just be a part of me, an instinct that's like, oh yeah, jump and flip in this weird way. And then halfway in midair, I'm like, oh, wait, I don't really know how to land from here.
You know what they say, Alex. Ignorance is bliss.
Until you get hit with the fucking ground.
Yeah.
But then I guess you know, right?
Then that would no longer be ignorance.
Yeah.
And that is the non-bliss part. Like if you did those flips and then just closed your eyes and just forgot about landing, you wouldn't have, there would be no ounce of worry. You would just, there'd be impact and then you'd be like, oh, I hit the ground. There's no ignorance in that. I'm injured. You know?
Dude, I wonder, okay.
All right, hold on real quick. There's a huge thing. So I get into situations a lot snowboarding because I'll throw myself into the air at like 30, 40 miles an hour. And I'm like, okay, I have to rotate this way. And like I'll be halfway done. And I'm like, haha, okay. So I thought about rotating the first way. Now, how do I get the second one around? So I'm like in midair, just like in the worst possible fucking position to try to snowboard in. And it's just like, okay, how do I correct myself? And I feel like putting yourself in positions like that is when I learn the most about what my body can do and where my limits actually are. And it's a weird mix of like I can't be worried beforehand. If you're worried beforehand, your body's going to like tense up and not do what you want it to do. If you just think about what you need to do and do it and then worry like halfway, cuz you can mentally bail halfway. And I feel like there's a huge difference between like knowing you're going to hit the ground or just being very worried that you're going to hit the ground, and you might make yourself hit the ground because you're so worried about it. Because now all you can think about is, oh my God, I'm going to hit the ground. How would I make it hurt less versus how do I not hit the ground? Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's a huge life lesson, honestly, if you think about it. If you focus on the negatives, sometimes you miss out on taking advantage of the positives.
And that push it to the limit, man. Because it's hard to push to the limit while simultaneously being super afraid of crossing that limit, right? Like, and sometimes I wonder, okay, my own personal experience with this, and I have not delved as deeply, I think, into the adrenaline-packed waters as you have with extreme sports, but in the little way that I've touched it recently with powerlifting, right? The competition's coming close, so I'm starting to push it more, right? And before I was being much more careful, blah, blah, blah. And now that I'm getting more to the push it phase, it's like, okay, you're just going to have to bite down and you're going into a realm of maybe injury. And are you okay with that? And if you're okay with that, go into it. And I'm still trying to figure this out. Like, is there an amount of fear that's like helpful? An amount of fear that can give me that extra adrenaline to like focus more, to help me tighten up my form a little more, just give me more energy? But then sometimes I also notice this strange power and calm, or going into it with a positive attitude. And I'm still
That's what I'm saying. It's a weird balance because like being worried about your safety is good, because obviously not being worried about your safety is how you get hurt. But at the same time, it's like it's the mix of not necessarily being worried and not being worried. It's being worried but also having faith in your abilities and knowing that you're your number one fan. You got your own back. You're not trying to put yourself in danger, but sometimes you have to put yourself in dangerous situations, and having that comfort of like knowing you got yourself, if that makes sense. Just like the confidence to know that you've put yourself through trials time and time again. You've been in a lot of different situations that are stressful and you've gotten over them. What's so different about this except a couple variables like X and Y, you know?
Now I just wonder about how to be able to perform highly over a long period of time, right? Like long-term high performance. Being able to push it to the limit and hit that limit from time to time, but not in such a way that you demolish yourself so you can't do it for a long period of time, but still doing it such that you can be both at the peak and doing it for a really long time. I'm fucking repeating myself a whole bunch. Sorry for that.
You should be.
But like, do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I feel like it's hard to balance that, because if you love something and want to get good at it as quickly as possible, you typically have to sacrifice yourself and your well-being in order to make that progress. So sometimes the thing you're in just doesn't speak longevity. You know, like certain aspects where it's just like, oh, I go skydiving a lot. It's like, okay, you're playing with ratios. Eventually your parachute's going to fail and you're going to die. That shouldn't be a surprise. But it's also like, you don't have to necessarily go to your way to be in danger in order to like you can take precaution. You don't have to just be like, fuck it, we ball. And just do everything incorrect.
Always,
like
yeah.
Like if you're just like, oh, like for instance, powerlifting. If you're just like, oh, I heard if you hold your breath, you get a little bit stronger real quick. So all you do is ever hold your breath for every lift. It's like, okay, no, like it's not what you should be doing. Like that's gonna injure you more and more and more. But it's just like that balance of yeah, just like pushing yourself to the limit, but also pushing yourself actually to the limit, not past it and hurting yourself over and over. Because I feel like that's the big difference. It's like, oh, well, I'll just keep using lifting as an example. Like, oh, I did this lift, I got that weight up, but now my back hurts. And it's like, okay, yeah, you did get yourself to that weight, but it sounds like you pushed yourself past that limit because now you're injured. Whereas like, oh, that's definitely the heaviest I could have lifted, and I feel fine afterwards. Well, obviously a little fatigue. You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there does seem to be that's the nature of the beast. In the case of lifting, if you love to hit max reps, you love to just go as heavy as possible, then just got to accept that I'm probably going to get injured a good amount of time. Like if you're a speed racer, like with the monkey and everything, you know? If you're a professional driver on like the Grand Prix. Hold on, wait. Okay, say what you're gonna. I can't let you pass that opportunity.
What? Dude, that's your fucking word? That's what you have like this vast vocabulary. And instead of saying race car driver,
speed racer,
literally anything else to describe that sport, speed racer.
Goddamn right.
Goddamn.
So yeah. Yeah, man. And for some people, I think they just call to the razor's edge, right? And part of the nature of the razor's edge is getting fucking cut or falling off of it. And even, like you said, loving it. Like, nah, I just love it so much, I'm willing to pay that price.
One of my favorite memories is breaking my nose snowboarding.
I love that. That's okay.
Like, hey, man, I was just like, dude, I fucking threw myself so hard that my nose is just.
There's something kind of fucking cool about, like, oh, and then you keep going the next day.
Dude, I was literally the next day, but dude, it did feel pretty badass. 'Cause I had 2 black eyes, so I had like a black eye and like some bandage on my nose, and I was just like, "What up? Watch me throw this 360." Ow. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Just like, that's cool.
It was like just doing a martial art when you're injured, just, I don't know. It teaches you something about yourself.
It's like seeing someone in the gym with like a fucking cast on. It's like, okay.
Uh-huh.
Just like, okay.
Badass
you're like, there's a breed, and then there's just whatever that breed is. You know? It's just like, there's a line.
But yeah, man. This makes me think of Alex Honnold, free solo climber. I told you this story before, but I'm going to tell it again. He's fucking looking at one of the most dangerous free climbs he ever did. For people who don't know, free climbing is when you do rock climbing without ropes or anything, right? You're free of the ropes. So he's looking at this most dangerous of climbs, and he's just on an impulse one day, just sees it, and he's like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to do it. Goes and does it, but it was really risky. He thought that he came too close to disaster too many times, and he finished it, and he's like, you know what, I did it, but it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel like I don't know, mastered it or like I pearled it. And so in short, he goes about it the next time, does a lot more planning, other people analyzing it and coming with him, and then when he did it that way, he's like, I got the masterful perfect on this run. And that they were both pushing to the limit in one way, but for whatever reason, at least in his case, it felt better to do it in a more careful, masterful sort of way.
That's why I like breaking my nose when I was snowboarding, because it taught me, it humbled me, because I was getting too much shit that I really shouldn't have been, if that makes sense. Like, I was pushing my limits too often and getting lucky and not realizing that I was getting lucky. So I did like some crazy shit where it was like a transition from one rail to the other, and like one was slightly below, and I slipped off, and I like fell face first onto the rail.
Oof.
And I was like, I just started doing rail stuff like a week ago. I shouldn't have been on something that advanced. And then I broke my nose, and I was like, holy shit! I'm so happy that I have a superficial wound. I'm so happy I didn't just break my wrist or my finger or my elbow or my collarbone, which is such a common injury in snowboarding. Can you imagine if I shattered my collarbone instead? That's so much
Or like
fucking
hit
worse.
your neck on it or something.
Dude, literally, just like it could have been literally anything else.
Mm-hmm.
I hit my head. I literally hit my head, and the only thing that took the impact was the thing that's made to take the impact. Like. That's insane. like, come on. That's some crazy shit where it's like, oh, how'd you land? It's like, oh, directly on my nose face first, going forward. It's like, great. Happy to hear, Broke my nose. That's fine.
Yeah, relative to all the other.
It's not horribly malformed either. That was my number one question to the ski patrol, by the way. First question I asked when ski patrol gets me, I go, am I still gonna be pretty? He was holding the bandage to my nose. He just goes, you don't have to worry. Dude, the noise my nose made though was so
the crunchy
cool.
crunchies. Oh. Oh yeah, weren't you fucking playing with it?
Yeah, ski patrol was like, can you move your nose at all? I was like, I can do this. And he was like, stop. And I was like, what? Dude, it felt so cool. I love pain, and like feeling it in different areas that I haven't felt before is fantastic. It's literally like, oh, dude, I've literally never felt this before. We'll probably never feel it again. It's literally, in some instances, pain is a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Dude, that's a fucking weird thing. I'm starting to notice that recently. If I change my perspective on pain when I'm feeling it, and it can be pain of a million different sorts, there can become a weird sort of savoriness to it. Like if, I don't know, I'm lonely, like I've been spending a lot of time by myself on my introvert sort of grind, and I'll just sit and turn off all the distractions and the noise and just sit in the silence of being by myself. I'm like, ooh, that can hurt in a way. Like just this, I'm so alone. But I don't know, there's a weird sitting with it, just like, I don't know, man, fucking soak it up.
It's like eating dark chocolate as a dessert.
Nah, so bitter, but so good.
It's bittersweet. That's like the definition. I'm just like, oh, it sucks, but it sucks good.
Dude, there's a fucking, you know the show Louis C.K.?
No.
He had a show.
I know of it, but I've never seen it. Yeah.
And he was in this relationship. They broke up. And he's talking to this old dude about it. He's like, oh, man, it hurts. Like, this is the fucking worst. And the old man's like, what are you complaining about? This is the best part, where you get to feel the pain of losing someone that you love more than anything else. And that's a weird... I feel like I just telepathically get what you're saying.
Shouldn't say what I was about to say.
No, please do. No, maybe I won't do.
What were you saying?
No, I think I know what you were going to say.
Very similar thing to South Park. That was a South Park episode. You remember when Butters joined like the goth people, and he was like,
the vamp kids?
He was like, why are you guys so sad? Isn't it awesome that something can make you feel this sad? Like, you get to lose this much. Like, isn't that awesome? You get the because I always heard, like, if something sucks, like, really bad, just know that there's an inverse waiting to happen or has already happened. You have to focus on those moments. Now, that's not always the case.
Mm-hmm.
You know? You can't, like, be delusional about it. Like, oh, it's just going to get better. I don't have to do anything. It's just like, okay, no.
I don't have to fight the Nazis. They'll just...
Why was I literally thinking the Holocaust?
Because that's such a perfectly extreme example.
I was listening to the podcast today, Jocko's podcast, Rape in Nanking. Mm-hmm. Dude.
If you trigger warning, like, I'm not big into trigger warnings, but if there's ever something where that should be put on.
I wouldn't even recommend that to anybody, actually. I wouldn't even use it as a reference.
So you should totally watch it if you're into the darkest depths of darkness.
It's probably it's probably the single-handedly most fucked up human mass. Like, obviously there's fucked up serial killers and they get like pretty fucked up, but this is like in mass. Everybody was doing fucked up shit.
Pretty in fucking depth.
Not literally recorded, but
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that shit's fucked up.
Rape of Nanking Jocko podcast.
It's episode 60. You know it's bad when Jocko does a warning too, where he's literally like, I don't even know if I was going to make this podcast. It was so bad. Mm-hmm. But yeah, fuck, I forgot. What were we talking about before I brought that up?
Pain of loss and savoring it.
Oh, they just let it, not that they let it happen, but they like didn't fight back.
Who, you mean?
The Chinese did not fight back. Because what had happened was they had actually outnumbered the Japanese, but the Japanese had dropped pamphlets that was like, you don't need to fight if you surrender. No one needs to get hurt. We'll give you 2 cups of rice a day. We'll keep you fed and safe. And so the Chinese surrendered, and then they just tied them all up and killed them. They killed all the able-bodied people, and they essentially just opened up the doors and allowed the Japanese to walk right in and massacre and rape their people.
Dude, that's what I've been thinking. I've been thinking a lot about things like that lately. I'm wondering, what is it that can allow something like that to be created and then perpetuated? Like, what part of human nature would first off want to create a world like that, want to run a government, a system like that, want to do that to people, and then also want to keep it going for years and years and years? Like,
I heard it described as before that had happened, they were it was like deep rooted in all of their types of education. Like they had a very militaristic mindset to where like everything, it was a cult. It was a government, but it was a cult. Everyone like was following the emperor, so it was just easy to get everybody on one common thing, to where what I say goes. So if I say these people aren't actually people, like they literally viewed the Chinese as just like lesser beings, like they're not on the same plane as us. Like, so when it was being described, like some of the Japanese soldiers that were doing fucked up shit was like, I still don't feel bad. I didn't feel bad in the moment. I never looked at them as people. Like it was like, does the butcher feel bad for slaughtering the pig? It's like, oh, fuck. It's like, if you can actually engrave someone's mind to think that way, it's not logical anymore. It's not like, it's literally like they're not killing people. Like it's like, oh.
And more than killing, because the level of torture.
Yeah, it's killing is putting it lightly. I don't want to go into
detail. Yeah.
I don't have a better word for it, honestly.
Like if you're ever to watch or read a
It's
Japanese
torture.
horror, like, because they go, when it comes to psychological fucked up imagery and just storylines, Japanese are pretty fucking great at that.
Japanese go ham in the psychological problems department.
Yeah.
Like world class psychos.
So just imagine the worst of the horror movies you've ever heard of or seen in Japanese realm, and then just imagine that in reality.
And then people are just doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's still just like, I mean, I fucking heard it hours ago, and I've heard it before too, but it still just like gets me every time to where it's just like, ooh. But hearing about, it's important to know about stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because it's like, how did that happen? And then it turns out to be just deep rooted xenophobia. Like isn't that the right term?
Where you hate foreigners?
Yeah. Is that the right word for this situation?
Sort of. Like, yeah, in part. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, I hate this entire race of people that is not my own.
Yeah, where it's just like, okay.
And then it get, the deeper levels of fucking hatred that get formed. Like, now I enjoy every ounce of pain. And like, okay, I can see my own impulses like that, where I've enjoyed other people's pain before, and then I'm just like, okay, put that to an nth degree, right? Like, the times, I don't know, if someone was annoying me in class and I said some joke at their expense and they felt bad, but I'm like, yeah, fuck you.
You scared me a little bit with that statement.
Good. I mean, shit, that's a part. But like, that seems to be the same circuit. And then just like, all right, just enhance that, enhance that, enhance that, enhance that. And eventually you get, I imagine, the rape of Nanking.
It's weird to even think that could happen.
Especially, it's weird to think that we could be that Japanese soldier doing that. That seems to be a really important part of analyzing something like that. Like, how could I actually, from where my life is now, become a person like that?
I don't think you could from where your life is now, because they didn't have a moral standpoint and then get corrupted. It was just that's what I was saying.
From birth,
the constant, like literal brainwashing of upbringing. Just like, oh, those are not people.
But even then, dude, it's hard to imagine what we can't imagine, obviously, right? But okay. Fuck example, the guy I talk about all the time in Cali, the whip dude. Like, I didn't know that I could experience, I didn't know I could be that kind of person. I didn't know I could be such a coward. I didn't know I could be so afraid and frozen by fear. I just didn't know that part of me existed. And then, oh, you're put in this crazy context, and then, oh, here's that part of you that comes to life that you never saw before. So it just makes me think like,
I feel like that goes away with exposure. If that makes sense.
Perhaps.
Depending on, everyone's different. Mm-hmm. Like some people might not ever react like that. You know, some people might always just full out sprint right off the bat, or vice versa. Just I'm throwing hands. I don't even know what the guy said. Is that we're already fighting? Mm-hmm. You know, so it's. I feel like it really depends on the person and the situations they're in, and it really depends on their virtues. Like, does a person, like, I feel like there's a difference between being a warrior and being a conqueror, if that makes sense. Like one loves battle, like the warrior will love battle and having like opponents that challenge them and make them go all out, whereas a conqueror just loves winning. They like being stronger, they like being powerful, they like dominating over the competition. You know, it's the difference between two entities. It's just don't know where I was going with that. But it all just boils down to how that person is raised. Just like it can be easier to change your mindset to be either fight, flight, feign, or what is it? Fight, flight, feint, or fawn?
Freeze.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Although I don't know what fawn means, so maybe it could be.
I think fawn is like deer in the headlight. Like fawn is just like very baby-esque, just like fuck.
But the point for me bringing that up is, some people, if they go into that situation, might attack. Some might sprint immediately. Some might just faint, like as soon as they hear that. But the point being that if you were to ask me the day before, would I ever react like that? There's the part of the intellectual part that might say, well, you never know until you're there, right? But there would also probably be an emotional part of me that's never felt something like that. So it's like, I wouldn't. Like, no, I'd be the badass in that situation, something along those lines. And just the fact that parts of ourselves exist that are so extremely different from what we're used to on the daily basis in all our life leading up to that point, that it's hard for me to ever rule out what I could do put in a certain context. And that's what, like, when it comes to a situation like the Nazis or the rape of Nanking, a lot of it seems to me to be, it's important to avoid the context, right? Like, the way I see it, if you get put into that context, it's essentially already too late. You're going to want to stop something like that many steps before. I see it almost as getting caught in an armbar or a chokehold. It's like, yeah, there are some things you can do, and some people are good at escaping at that point. But if you're already caught in an armbar and the person's good, there's a good chance your arm's just going to break. If you're caught in a situation where the Nazis have already gained control of the majority of the government, right? Like, they're taking over. Their rule has now become law, and you didn't really do anything to stop them up to that point. They've gained too much momentum, it seems, and now it's like it's a good chance you're going to become a Nazi or be forced to leave, and there's a very small chance you're going to try and save a Jewish person. Like, there's a very small chance, and I'm basing that off of some data I heard about the number of people that either supported or didn't try to stop the Nazis during that time. It was crazy. It was like 95, 98%.
They were the majority because they were the majority. Like, they didn't become the majority party because they were the minority party, you know?
But that can get weird. It's like, okay, let's say 30% of our population agrees with this movement, but then this movement takes over the government, and now all the four powers of the government are now at this person's hand. So it could still only be like 30% of people in the population that really truly deeply believe in what they're saying. I don't know if this was the case, but they could still control the government and what the country does, even if it's not the majority of people in power.
I feel like if we're talking about the Nazis specifically, I think a lot of them, like a lot of the country, was for Nazis.
Yeah, as I was saying that, I was hit with flashbacks.
I was like, dude, I don't know. A lot of that country was like, yes, this is what we want, but then it turned into like the Holocaust, and I was like, maybe not what we want, but you already have all our power, so maybe that is what I want.
You read part of the Gulag. Well, actually, okay, you said that. It made me think of another person on Jocko's podcast, this old Jewish woman who lived through the Holocaust. I forget the episode specifically, but she was just describing the steps it took, right? Like, when I was little kid, 3 or 4, I would play with the other kid in my village. No one would really have a problem. When I was 5, some of the kids would call me names. Not many, but like a few of them here and there. When I was 6, okay, now like many more people are starting to insult me or give me dirty looks. When I'm 7, my friends kind of stopped hanging out with me. When I'm 8, the people that used to be my friends are now very aggressive towards me. When I'm 9, it's like, okay, every now and then you'll see Jewish people having to wear the tags on them or being put in prison. And when I'm 10, it's like we're getting shipped off. And it was this weirdly gradual, it's the common saying, step by step, you walk towards hell. But it's really freaky to think, like, is there anything going on right now in our own country, I wonder, that's becoming normalized that could lead to something disastrous?
A whole lot of things. We're very wasteful as a country. We're very used to wasting things. I think that's a crazy thing to be used to. Like I think isn't it I think it's like 20 or 30% of our produce just gets thrown out. Like after not just like the things that don't get sold, like after purchase produce gets. It's it's a crazy number to think about.
That's weird, and in a way, it's great, right? Because we have so much that we're able to do that and be okay with it. We don't even think anything about it. But yeah, as you're saying that, something feels a little off about not appreciating things that you'd kill for and die for in other circumstances.
I was about to say, this country is like everything's like handed to them. Everything's taken for granted a lot of times. And I feel like it's because life has been, for the most part, easy for people in America because we're pretty forward with our freedoms, but our freedoms are in like the wrong places, in my opinion. I feel like we can do a lot of stupid stuff if we want to, but some of the important stuff is a little more legislated, if that makes sense.
The important stuff is more legislated.
No, wait, I think I said that. As in, like, the things that would be more important to have freedoms for are slowly becoming more legislated. Like, for instance, like freedom of speech, and then like tangling that into like social media, to where it's like you can get your account banned if you say certain things. Or
funny side note about that. For the first time, I finally got one of those warnings. No, that happened a little while ago. Copyright's funny. I have to get like 8-9 seconds of an opening song, and then every now and then, if I get 10 or 12, I'll get a copyright problem with. But I got one of those. If you want to know the truth about X subject, click on this link on one of my videos.
That's pretty
It was
funny.
for climate change, but it almost felt like a badge of honor in a weird way. And maybe I'm just been weirdly...
you made the bots question you as a citizen. Our light is on you.
Right? The eye of Sauron has turned. But it doesn't seem that spooky at the moment, which is good.
YouTube sees me.
But it hit me. It was like, I'm starting to touch that realm a little more. And it's weird that it would feel cool. And I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing,
It's
but...
cool to be an outlaw, you know?
There's something romanticized about that.
Why is Batman so dope? He's an anti-hero. He breaks the law, but he saves people, you know? He ignores the morally unjust laws to where it's like, this doesn't actually make me a bad person.
Mm-hmm.
You just put up laws for silly things.
I heard that's a theme in stories throughout history when you're trying to figure out what's a good person, right? That the good person is often the person who doesn't just follow rules. The goody two shoes isn't exactly a good person. I heard them described almost like a bunny. Like, it's not that you just can't be evil. You're like a butter.
You're just obedient, and
Yeah.
you just don't have malice in you.
But then, like, you think about Harry Potter. This was a story they were using to describe it. He could speak to snakes, right? The snake being the stereotypical symbol of evil. He could speak that language, and he and his crew would break the rules quite often, but a lot of the time they were breaking rules for a very good reason, like to save someone's life here or there, where we're making our own judgment. Like, we're making the executive decision on what's right and wrong here, even though there's this enormous, powerful system, we can call it the government, the school system, that's telling me what we are and are not allowed to do. But we're like, nah, fuck that. You're wrong right here, right now.
That was kind of my point, which is like they have a lot of laws to just encompass a lot of scenarios that would, for the majority of the time, be correct. Where it's like, oh, you shouldn't murder someone. It's like, that's a good thing. It's like, oh, but now they're in my house with a gun trying to murder me. It's like, okay, There you go.
That's such a
Like-
weird thing about morality, dude. Context.
That's my point. And we have a lot of silly laws where it's like, because the majority of the people that would have this law applied to are doing it in malice, we have to, I don't know.
You're saying that for the example of killing. Well, we can't just trust that if we make it legally allowed, most people are just going to kill for good.
That's kind of my point. It's just like, you could just say that everyone who killed in self-defense shouldn't be arrested, but it's just like, okay, what if they just like put themselves in a situation where they need to use self-defense, where it's like, oh, they just walked into a bad neighborhood and started yelling slurs, and then they started getting jumped, and just like, oh, and then they shot someone. Just like, okay.
That's such a cool part of our judicial system, for all the flaws I'm sure it has. The fact that it is that intricate at times is like, okay, we're going to really look at this on a case-by-case basis. We're going to bring this forward. We're going to have these two tools that are trying to prove each other wrong. And that was interesting to, what's the woman's name we went to dinner with when we were in Maine? She's a lawyer. I forget. Lindsay? Lindsay might have been friend. Anyway.
Lindsay.
I think.
Which one? The shorter one?
No, taller.
Bree.
Yeah. And the way she described, like, no, I'm not trying to decide what's right and wrong here. I'm just a tool for justice. And I'm going to analyze the facts through the lens of laws, right? And then doing that, there are these two people that are going to go to war and try to disprove each other. And while that's happening, you have the judge who's telling them what they can and can't do. And you have the jury that's observing this, like, independently. This group of just randomly kind of randomly selected people.
I heard there's a funny question that I saw someone posed for a lawyer. Okay.
I'm laughing at the mic. Dallas is adjusting it, and it just doesn't want to stay.
Man, a lot of guys have this problem, all right?
Blue pill.
This is sponsored by Viagra.
One day.
You only take one a day?
Take them shits like vitamins, bro.
Eat them like fruit snacks. I saw this interesting question posed to the lawyer. It was like, what if you know your client's guilty, but they hired you to prove them non-guilty? Yeah, that's an interesting thing, because where it's like, oh, I know, because that gets iffy for me, because it's like, sure, criminals deserve defense lawyers, but if they're just like, yeah, I fucking murdered that guy, it's like, okay, maybe you should go to jail, but the lawyer's there to make sure you don't go to jail too long.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how that works,
but
as far as how many people are actually willing to still work for you, even if you admit you're
you
guilty.
have to like take an oath to like help them. It's like a doctor. Like if there's a patient in front of you, you can't just be like, I'm not saving that person because they're blah 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 blah.
I have some vague memory. Well, the slight difference that I remember hearing is that I won't take on this client if I have a good idea of whether or not they're actually guilty. I've heard some lawyers do that, where it's like, no, I'm pretty sure you actually fucking did this, and I'm not here for that. I'm going to just step back. But there are, of course, other lawyers. One of the weirdest, like, ethical advertisements I've seen for lawyers was something along the lines of, you only pay if we
win.
Yes. Which is a weird incentive to give the firm.
Well, it's not. I don't think they do regular. I know what you're talking about. I think they do more like lawsuits,
like car accidents and shit. But even with that, like, if you're at fault, but I'm going to make damn sure you're not found to be at fault, and that's my biggest incentive as a lawyer. Like,
that's what I'm saying. That's what happens when you mix capitalism into every aspect of life that we deem important. Like, oh, you want your life saved? Okay, here's a good surgery. We have good doctors. We have good medical staff. You're $800,000 in debt now. Have fun. It's like, okay, I'm dead. Financially, I'm dead. Or like you just said, like the lawyer thing, where it's like, this person should not be walking the street. They have a lot of money. They hired the right person who will just get paid a lot of money to not tell anybody that they know that they're guilty, and now they're free. O.J. Simpson, for example.
What do you mean, Dal?
My bad. Glove don't fit.
Yeah. That shit's weird, man.
Shoot.
It's fucking strange, because if you look at other systems, there are a couple questions that come to mind, right? Like, is there a better system at hand? This one seems pretty great in compared to a lot of historical examples.
Laws only matter if you're broke. They only matter if you're broke. If your pockets are deep enough, get away with a lot of shit. If you can't get away with it in America, you buy an island and make it legal there.
I don't know if that's always true, but there's a sentiment
True,
to
a lot
that,
of that the time.
There's some truth in that for sure.
80%.
I've done the math.
And I'm being generous for the good guys, let me tell you.
Yeah.
We're looking at 92.
So yes, you heard it here, folks.
We're so fucking corrupt.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
I told you I do.
You're right. You're fucked, Dallas. Why do I keep questioning you?
I don't know. It's a mistake every time. I have a very pessimistic view of things like that.
That's because I don't know, man. That seems almost popular among our people our age nowadays. It's like to be cynical.
Because it's like, oh, we trust the government a lot. Oh, we can't trust the government anymore. Oh, we trust the government a lot. Oh, we can't trust the government. Like we're just hitting a fucking spike. Just like, oh, we can't trust the fucking government. They're so fucking stupid. And something's going to happen because we don't trust the government enough. And then, something stupid's going to happen. It's like, oh, why do we listen to the government? We don't trust the government.
That is something that worries me, dude.
It's just like, what, oh my God.
If we throw the baby out with the bathwater, we're in for some real shit. Because this is one of the...
Fuck them kids. Fuck the baby and fuck the bathwater. You need less bathwater with less babies. Remember that.
Vote for Dallas.
For Dallas. I'm not just pro-choice. I'm pro-abortion. I want them.
I
gone.
want you. Oh my God.
I don't even have a social media following, and I'm gonna be canceled.
They're gonna knock on your door.
There's nothing to cancel me for. They're gonna send me a fucking handwritten letter. No more.
No more Dallas.
Fuck.
You're not allowed to be Dallas.
Gotta go by Enrique again.
Oh, dude.
I forgot what we were even talking about.
We're talking, man. We're talking about that good shit, Dallas.
Talking about that bullshit. I don't know what you're talking about.
On the journey to find the good shit, sometimes you hit some bullshit.
We were talking about like government corruptness.
Mm-hmm. But I want to find a subject that's more tantalizing for you, Dallas.
I don't know.
So
I really like talking bad about the government. I, for one, despise the government.
What's one of the best things you could say about the government?
The best things I can say about the government? I'm a part of it, technically.
You know that actually, I'm not a citizen. I'm not a cynic anymore. Actually, it's the greatest thing that ever fucking existed. Look at that blonde hair, folks. Look at those blue eyes.
Ain't nothing but charisma pouring out of me. Good things about the government, I don't know. They keep people safe. We have really good like first responders and doctors, and we have a good military. I just think everything's like used poorly. We have good stuff. I don't think we got there because people made good decisions, but I feel like people are riding too high on that, and we're slowly making worse decisions with our good stuff.
Why do you think that? I want to get down to the root for a second of like why you believe what you believe.
We shouldn't have as many problems in this country as we do with all the advancements we've made as a civilization. I feel like the more we grow technologically, the more we should grow together as a society. But I feel like the more advancements we make, the more I see the country splitting. I don't know if it correlates, but it's just like the longer time goes on, the longer I see people replace information with feelings, if that makes sense. Like instead of having educated opinions, they have emotional opinions, where it's like, I follow this person. I threw out all my reasons because I was told to follow this person. So now I can't even think about why I follow this person because I'll get mad that I don't know.
Do you think your beliefs are founded on more emotion or more being well educated on these topics?
It depends, but a lot of them are just emotion, where it's like, I mean, I'm conscious of it, so I try not to talk about those subjects as much, but like I will just have information gaps filled with emotional responses because it makes me feel better about thinking the way I do, if that makes sense.
Say that again?
Like I will... Which part? Like all
the
of
last
it?
part. No, like the last few words. You said something about filling a gap.
Like
phrasing. Boom.
I won't That was a bad one, but I'll take it.
Thank you.
Phrasing boom. Yeah, I was saying, so there'll be certain areas where it's like I'll know like certain things about a subject, but like other areas will be filled with like emotional responses, or
Well, let's.
more so to where it's like I haven't considered the subject. I haven't considered certain areas because it might deem what I think incorrect, if that makes sense. Like how like
Like, you don't want to be proven incorrect, so...
yeah, so like I specifically haven't thought about that, and don't make me think about it or I'll get mad. I mean, not like literally, but like at a very base emotional reaction. Like,
It makes me think we might benefit if by adding more of a scientific thinking to like our culture. More of the I'm prioritizing truth over being right sort of mindset. But wait, I want to dive into for a second, like hammer through this. Why do you have these beliefs about our government specifically, about America? Why do you think that we're fucking up more than we're succeeding? Why do you think we're falling more on the bad end than the good?
I feel like I just see it fail constantly.
Where are you seeing it fail? Like on,
for instance, I feel like a lot of people are divided nowadays. Like a lot of people have strong beliefs, and if you don't believe them, they don't like you, like to a core. And I used to only see that with religion, but now I'm seeing it with like political views, to where it's like, oh, if you're not a Republican, I won't even talk to you because you just must be fucking stupid and racist. Or if it's vice versa, I don't know.
That makes me think, like, how much of that is true and how much of that is just taking place on media platforms, on social media platforms, on news platforms. And so that when you're trying to figure out what's going on in the world right now, I'll go to these places, and these places, maybe it's true, maybe it's not, but they're telling me that the world's getting so divided, and so I think that that's the truth on the ground level. But as I'm saying that, I'm bringing to mind several examples of on the ground level that being true, on the ground level having conversations with people and noticing more heat become produced around these topics than I've noticed when I was younger. Whether, take your pick, abortion, Trump, Ukraine, etc. This tendency to go towards...
I choose abortion. You said take my pick. I picked.
Dude, okay, politics. What is politics? Because it does seem to be a lot of these issues, a lot of this heat seems to be centered around political issues. And I heard them described as that's the systems through which power gets transferred, right? Like government is the rules we follow as a country, what books we read in school, the speed on the roads, so on and so forth. But politics is like, it's the way power gets distributed. It's the way decisions get made. And maybe people are getting angry about, through that view, how power is being distributed. These people shouldn't be making these decisions. I don't want these decisions to be made. And the people who are making them are getting too much power, and now I'm getting really angry about that. And for whatever reason, we're getting primal about that as opposed to respectfully curious.
That's what I mean when I'm saying like it's slowly getting more and more divided. It seems that the people as a mass are losing power, and the people in power are gaining power slowly but surely, and it's just being proven like time and time again when we have like a huge scandal of some sort, and then it gets like pushed under the rug and no one talks about it like ever. Like for instance, like the fucking Epstein thing, like literally the fact that literally nothing came of that's insane. Like that was just like, oh, he killed himself, no more about the island, nothing ever happened, no one gets in trouble, goodbye.
That gets weird. I think some of the people surrounding him got in trouble. From what I heard, a lot of the people are dead now. But that might just be a product of things getting moved out of the news cycle quickly regardless. Like Ukraine, that war's still going on, but you don't hear about it much anymore. When Ebola was a thing, it was like a week of news cycle and then moved on. The news seems to, our attention span about those topics seems to be very small as a country. Like we want new topics, new hot topics, new big important topics.
I don't know, because I still hear shit about COVID.
I don't even, as I say that, I only watch major news channels very peripherally. Like I'll just look at a news heading out of the corner of my eye, but I very rarely dig into it. A lot of it seems to be about Trump still, especially when I watch my parents watching CNN or MSNBC. Like they're just grabbing onto him.
I feel like it's not nothing gets covered that's important. Everything gets covered that's how do we invoke emotion. Everything's fucking clickbait nowadays. It doesn't even matter what it is.
That is a weird thing, man. I was thinking, okay, how many of the topics that are most popular are actually the most important?
Not a lot. Especially if we're talking like literally like trending stuff, like that's trending on social media, I guarantee you it's like dog shit level importance, like minuscule, like, oh, I found a fucking extra Fruit Loop in my bowl or some shit type of news. Like some of the shit I see on the internet like makes me lose brain cells if someone actually sat down and like typed this out and said, I'm gonna submit this as like a professional journalist or whatever.
Yeah, it can be pretty painful sometimes.
It's like I could like sit there in middle school and like look at a celebrity and be like, oh, and that's like the equivalent of what I see pop up on my phone sometimes. I'm like, okay, it's ridiculous. I don't know, sometimes the population of America as a whole just kind of pisses me off, you know? Can't help but think that I'm just surrounded by fucking idiots every now and then. Not literally, specifically at this moment, yeah. But
For those of you that can't see, I was getting hard eye contact when Dallas said that. Well, actually, I couldn't tell.
Not literally.
But it's weird. It can seem that way. Like if I just go to Snapchat, like I try to never look at the stories that will automatically pop up. Like not the stories of the friends I have, the stories below that. You know what I mean? Because that just, I don't know. It's either porn or it's porn in one form or another. And I don't mean just sexual, like porn fighting. Porn is in like oddly satisfying. This thing that just take this stimuli that humans are very attracted to for some reason. I don't know, like breaking a fucking bowling ball that's heated to super high temperatures. That seems to be a form of porn in a weird way.
Yeah, I don't know why you're calling that porn and not just entertainment.
Because the essence of porn seems to be like extracting out this. A lot of the entertainment nowadays that I've noticed seems to be porn. And by porn, I mean it is this hyper-natural form of pleasure, right? It's this form of pleasure that's taken to the nth degree. Like we found the natural form of it, like, I don't know, seeing lightning out in nature. That's a really cool stimuli. But then if you see it on the internet, it's this lightning storm that's in the most densely packed lightning area in the country. So you're seeing a bunch of shattering while there's this crazy lens on it, while it's going in slow motion, while there's all these different, I don't know, GIFs or whatever put in the background. Like it's just put boom, super stimuli to the nth degree, whether that's in a fight, like I said earlier, whether it's actually sexual, whether it's food, etc., etc.
I would just call that addictive. I wouldn't call that porn. Like I would just say everything's addictive. I wouldn't say everything's porn.
Yeah, the connotation of porn is very sexual.
Pornographic. Yeah, because it's porn, Alex. That's my point. It shouldn't be used for other things. It's
I don't know, man. I'm curious, like the root definitions of porn. Like when I think to, but yeah, okay, fine. I'll give you that for now.
Just like, man, fighting, that's porn to me, man. It's like,
there's you never heard of people call it fight porn? Like where you just watch videos of highlight reels.
I get that, and I did think of that when you were saying that, but I just feel like you were using the term too loosely, so I had to say something. I was just like,
fight porn, food porn. Disaster porn. Like these are common terms.
Yeah, but I don't know if I would call that necessarily pornographic. Like I wouldn't say that this is
for whatever reason when you say the graphic, it feels less accurate for the content.
That's what I'm saying. You're just cutting out the second half of the word, and you're like, oh, this fits. It's like, nah, there's still the rest of that pornographic. Like it's just like,
whatever. Then we won't call about that for now. But the essence of that you get.
I do get what you're saying. It's addictive. Everything's addictive, and I always say that. I always say this. Everything that's popular nowadays isn't good. It's addictive. It makes you want another one. It makes you want more. It gives you just enough to come back and do it again so that you feel good. Like
it's weird because the difference between loving something and being addicted to something doesn't seem. It seems like it could be a blurred line at times. Like the difference between obsession and passion. But it does seem to be, in my experience, for whatever that's worth, teetering towards addictive. Hyper.
Worth 0.
It might be close to that, dude. I'm not gonna lie. This was one of the most important fucking diagrams I've ever seen, dude. Like one of those pyramid about like what's most important. And it's talking about scientific evidence. And at the bottom of that list, on the top was like, I don't know, peer-reviewed studies. So you're collecting a bunch of different studies that a bunch of different people are reviewing very stringently. Then below that is like a singular study, and below that, somewhere below that is expert opinion. Expert opinion is essentially at the bottom of the list of scientific evidence. When you're talking about the pyramid of like what is the highest quality scientific evidence, expert opinion was pretty much at the bottom. And I'm not an expert in these matters, and this is a lot of my opinion, so take that for what it's worth. But somehow it still seems important to be talking about these topics. Yes.
Especially with music.
Oh, could you come closer to the mic? Wait, elaborate on that for a second.
Especially with music.
All right, back up from the mic for it.
I feel like
a little closer.
Now grab the hand with grab the mic with two hands and twist.
You were saying something about pornographic a second ago.
See, you're gonna get more views now, dog. That's got to be the fucking. What's that called?
When I open my story for this episode, it's just going to be you doing that.
What is it called when you put a picture on the front of a video?
I know what you're talking about, but the cover of the
Fuck.
Anyways, the video, yeah. Oh God.
Oh.
That wasn't pleasant to hear. Dude, I feel like we're talking about too many like heavy, serious topics.
We're jumping back. Well, because everything we talk about ties into another one. Because addiction is very easy to use to influence people. Like if you get someone, it's easy to get someone addicted to something in this day and age because not a lot of people have a positive outlet for certain emotions. Like martial arts is a great outlet. Not a lot of people do that. The gym's a great outlet. Not a lot of people do that. A lot of people just like bottle things up and like instead they'll drink or instead they'll smoke or instead they'll watch porn.
It does seem to be one of like the big missions of our age. Prior to that, it seemed to be being able to get to a point of survival, right? And now the lifespan is increasing incredibly rapidly across the world. People are getting more food, water, shelter, roads, transportation, internet access like really fucking quickly. So the survival thing, that kind of seems to be taking second importance. And now we're just it seems like we're facing what? Health, mental health, thriving, well-being, emotional intelligence, that sort of thing.
Personally, I don't think we should be allowed to live past 40.
That's all, folks.
I want no kids and no one's allowed to live past 40. I want all of us to die out very quickly. As a human race, as a whole, everyone who's alive now, that's it. We'll see how long we last.
Cryo sleep? No, that's cheating.
No cryo sleep.
See you fuckers out there trying to go cryo sleep, then the AI is going to work on advancing my lifespan while I'm under sleep, and then I can go wake up and live thousands of years.
If you ain't
40.
raw dogging this survival, you ain't allowed to survive.
Should all live on the razor's edge.
Constantly. Mm-hmm. And if you can't, I would literally recommend having a razor around you at all times that can injure you at some point.
Like really closely put it to your eyeball. Try and like just barely grace your eyeball with the blade, but not cut yourself. Mm-hmm. And then you will know the thrill that is the razor's edge.
And that is how I would describe longboarding down that hill.
Dude, isn't it weird? Like trying to get that in daily life seems almost like an impossible task.
It is. It is, yeah. I threw my body into oblivion and hope for the best. You should not do that every day.
Oh, yes, fair enough. That being said, dude,
you can't have one without the other. You won't have the reward without the risk. It's not the same.
If you were to do that sort of ride and do like a gradual build-up, do a little smaller of a hill, right? It would still be a wonderful outlet, I think. Like, for example, when I was climbing the rocks, I wasn't dangling from like one hand and trying to swing to another. I did some stupid shit while I was doing that because I wanted the thrill, but generally speaking, I felt like I got a really wonderful dose of adrenaline and whatever else comes with that sort of task without having too much risk. Like I felt like I could do that for years and it would be a wonderful piece of the thriving puzzle, but I wouldn't like super increase the chances of me dying unless I'm, of course, like you say, pushing it to that limit where the odds of me fucking up are like 50-50.
Probably even lower in your favor.
So maybe to get like a 30-70 odds of fucking up every now and then, right?
I like my danger how I like my beef. 90-10, baby. 90-10.
Like 90% uncooked?
No, beef is rated by its fat rating. It's 90% fat. 10% beef.
Hey man, if that's what you like,
90% danger, 10% chance.
I might be
of
trying to
survival.
project my own form of thriving onto you, Dallas, and I apologize if I do that too much.
Alex doesn't want to see me die.
Especially while I'm in the fucking car following behind.
And I would just like it to
Hey,
be
Papa
known
Joe,
that I don't appreciate his shackles he puts on my freedom bird. That is danger. Thank you very much.
Hey man, if it's worth it to you as much as it hurts, Dallas, fly. Fucking fly free.
I can't even imagine the fucking aneurysm you'd have if you saw how I snowboard sometimes. like I can just imagine you seeing some of the shit I do and just
Dude, that makes me think like if I'm a parent one day and I want to give my kids space to do shit like that.
I love you and I don't want you to take this the wrong way, but in that specific aspect, I'm gonna feel so bad for your kids. They're gonna be like, Uncle Dallas, we went hiking the other day and I went to go cliff jumping. My dad only let me jump off the 5-foot spot.
Dude,
Because he said, one time I closed my eyes and I could have hurt myself, so I didn't want you to do that, Skipper.
that's weird, man. Okay, like it's the common theme of you're seeing your kid climb up the tree and you kind of turn away and you come back when they're really high up the tree and then you scream like, ah!
That's when you crack a beer and you get your lawn chair, kick it out, and you see if Darwin was speaking facts.
See whether this kid's about to win the Darwin Award. But like I heard, for whatever this is worth, that some parents will yell at the kid like when they're at the top of the jungle gym, so the kid, like there will be a part of them that wants the kid to get injured so that the kid is less likely to do dangerous things. So I'm going to try and panic them when
That's
they're really high up.
fucked
So they fall because there's this kind of Oedipal part of me that wants to always keep my baby in the nest, always keep them safe.
It's like you always need me.
Yeah, right? And I never want you to get hurt. No, it's okay.
Oh, I don't want to think about that. I'm so glad I didn't have that. My parents were like, go higher, pussy. Is that all you got? That's all you can fucking climb
Well,
to?
shaming your child into danger might be a whole other conversation.
I think we just clicked the buckle as to why I went down that hill that day.
Inside Dallas's head, I'm not a pussy. I'm not a pussy.
I'm not a fucking pussy, I'm a man. There is a common saying I have in my head.
I'm not a pussy.
When I am doing crazy shit, and it's how bad do you fucking want it?
I just saw flashbacks of your wrestling training that I could only imagine. But hey, man, I mean, there's a lot of fucking utility to that.
there's a famous quote that I used to describe my mother's drive for me to do sports as a kid. So, mind you, I'm like 7, maybe 8 at the time, and I'm wrestling. And my mom's recording, and you just hear my mom from the recording, and you can obviously see me wrestling from the point of view. You just hear behind the camera, put him in the fucking ground, Dal. Yeah. And let me tell you, I was a nationally ranked wrestler.
He put some in the ground.
Put some in the fucking ground.
Mm-hmm.
But, you get that trade-off, Alex. We talk about this a lot, that balance of push and nurture.
Yes.
Because I feel like, if you want to be an Olympic athlete, your mental state is going to be at like the bridge of collapse for the most part.
What do you think about the following statement? That a
disagree.
teacher...
I'm gonna disagree.
That's how we make sparks, children. That's how we get the fire blazing. Always disagree.
Always disagree. And also, should I mention, shut the fuck up.
Disagree emotionally. Insult them so they stop thinking clearly.
Don't disagree. Just call them stupid.
Activate their adrenal glands so it blocks their frontal cortical function so they can no longer reason well.
Then explain that if they truly cared, that they wouldn't get emotional about the subject.
And then spit on them and fight.
But then have a gun because this is fucking America. then claim self-defense. Amen.
Amen. Hallelujah. Vote for Trump. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
And now we're done.
And anyway, what the fuck was
Whore. We were talking about nature and punishment and pushing yourself, and then you were about to say something that brings up a good point.
Oh yeah. What do you think that a mentor, like a coach, can push you farther than you can push yourself?
Well, do I think so?
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, 100%. No way would I ever disagree with that.
Weird.
Because I feel like, all right, I'll give you this. I feel like you have to get a coach or a mentor in some way, shape, or form in order to be able to push yourself to that extent. Because I feel like there was no one that pushed me harder than my coaches up until a certain point.
That gets weird because then I think of a Goggins, and maybe if we were sat him down or if I were to go through his book, I'd find that there were a lot of mentors along the way. But it seems like he was largely his own.
Him being fat was his mentor. It sounded like
almost his dark side, his traumatic childhood was like the coach.
His own pain. Like his pain was his.
Oh fuck,
mentor.
dude! And then in a weird, maybe his dad that abused him horribly was like his mentor because in a way that kind of created the fire that pushed him so far later in life.
There's a thing I like to tell myself when I see just straight up bad examples of human beings. Like when you see someone that's just not a good person, like through and through, you're just like, that's a scumbag.
I would love to hear like a life example of that, like where you've actually. Like, I'm not watching this on something. I'm seeing this person in real life.
I've seen, like, grown adults, like, bully kids. Like, bully their children. Like, I'm talking, like...
I was going to ask their own kids as if that makes a difference. Sorry.
It would make it worse bullying someone else's kid, honestly.
That might be better. I don't know. But anyway, sorry.
Like, I've like... Because I've always worked... Well, ever since I've had a job, it's always been around kids. I was a lifeguard. I was a fucking swim instructor, MMA instructor, snowboard instructor, all the good jazz. And I've seen some shitty fucking, like, to the core shitty parents. Like, I've seen parents literally, like, pick their kids. Like, this is the scene that I'm thinking of when I think of bad people. I was at a swim class. Well, I was teaching a swim class, and this kid was doing relatively well, but he just couldn't get, like, a certain aspect of the stroke down. And he wasn't even not listening to me. He literally just, like, could not understand. He just, like, it was just like, okay. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know what to do. And as I'm trying to explain it to the kid, the dad yanks him out of the pool by one arm, mind you. So the kid's hanging by one arm. He puts him on the bench, and he goes, "Why can't you just fucking listen? Why do you have to be such a goddamn disappointment?" And then he just storms out with the kid. And I'm telling you, dude, it was in a span of like 2 minutes that this kid was having trouble. Like, it was such a bottle crack reaction of just like everything's chilling. This like it was literally just like I turn around and be like, "Oh, you don't understand this? Well, here's this." The kid was just like, "Okay, let me try." Mm-hmm. Tried it, put him back on the step. He's like, "Oh, I still didn't get it." To just me turning around to set up another practice, like I set up a few things to practice more on, and I turned around, the kid was getting yanked up, and that's what I heard. And I was just like, I literally told my manager, like, "Dude, he's not allowed back here. Like, that I'm not teaching that kid again. Like, that dude is not allowed. Like, I'll teach the kid, but that dude's not allowed in this building." And he was just like, "All right, I'll let him know." And the kid just, like, wasn't back. But yeah, it was just like, damn.
Dude.
Like, some people are just scumbags. Kid was like 4 or 5. Like, it was like ridiculous. Like, I was like, damn, that would make me cry. And I'm an adult teaching this child.
Dude, that makes me think of a fucking few things. Well, I'll say this for now. It makes me think that the saying, "it takes a village to raise a kid," right? Like, for most of human history, it was literally a village of people that raised the kid. It wasn't just 2 people.
Yeah.
And so, like, if that guy was in a village trying to raise the kid, and obviously all the other adults are essentially parent figures as well, like, I doubt he'd fucking get away with that. Look at that goddamn forearm. Dallas, do it again. Do it.
We were talking about that porn earlier.
You break it, you buy it.
You don't know where I live.
Okay,
he wouldn't survive.
And also that makes me think, like, fuck, man. It seems like that guy just doesn't understand. I wonder if that guy just doesn't know how to be a good parent. Like literally like the blueprint. He just has a wrong blueprint in his head. Like when I think of racism a lot of the time, the theory is that most people that say they're not racist have is that, no, I just know the truth, right? Implying that the people that are racist, they just don't know the truth. They just believe in a different reality. Their facts are wrong. And that makes me think that this guy, like, what does it really mean to be a shitty person? In this context, it just seems like his understanding of reality is off. Like he thinks, oh no, that's how you parent. That's how you get good results as a kid. This is what I'm guessing his reasoning is, and not just that he takes his kid as a punching bag because it makes him feel better for some other terrible reasons. But like, damn, dude.
I don't know. Isn't that usually like the case with abusive parents, though?
Here's a funny. Oh, this is terrible. This is terribly funny. That okay. The narcissistic child, right? The kid that the parent just does not discipline them pretty much at all. They don't set rules. The kid just, you're a god essentially in this household. I've heard from psychologists, I'm thinking of Jordan Peterson specifically, like, okay, you have this kid, right? And this kid is their fucking tyrant over you because you essentially let them be that tyrant. And they annoy the shit out of you. And you think, no, I'm a good parent. Like, I don't get mad at my kid. My kid's this beautiful angel. Like, good people don't get mad at kids. You can't get mad at a kid. That would just make me a bad person. And you tell yourself that. But that's not really how humans work. So your kid yells, makes a fucking tantrum in Toys R Us, screaming. And you're telling yourself, like, no, I'm not mad. I'm fine. But inside, you're fucking steaming, right? And the kid comes up to you later with a drawing. And like, oh, wow, look at this wonderful drawing I made. And you think you're not going to do something bad to that kid, but maybe you're just going to be like, I'm working, like, get away from me, like, leave me alone. And you're going to give like stabs at this kid in little ways they're not conscious of.
Turn out your drawing is fucking shit.
Yeah. like you might do that where I'm going to find one little thing to criticize just to get you back.
My kid won't even have to throw a tantrum. I'll just do that right off the rip. I don't give a fuck about them. Fuck them kids. Can't express that enough if you haven't gathered that.
We're creating a lot of good slogans.
I love kids, by the way. I love teaching kids. Kids are great.
Dude, they're wonderful. You learn so much about human fucking nature, dude. I love those little bundles of joy.
It's so basic. They have no societal weights on them. You know what I mean? Like, there's not like a...
Like, they're not very molded by culture?
Yeah, like, a kid's not going to walk up and be like, your shirt's not name brand, you poor fuck. What do you live in a box? Go fuck yourself. Like, you'll never hear, like, a kid that isn't influenced by shitty things say that. Yeah. I've met some pieces of shit kids. Like, it's just like, okay, you're a scumbag. Like, you're an asshole. Like, you know what you're doing is hurting people's feelings. You're just like going in your way to do it. Met kids like that. You know, I was one of those kids too. Personally, yeah.
Seems like you've made good that's a very hopeful story. The Dallas.
I'd rather not get into that story.
Okay.
Let's just say I was not a good person through and through. Now I am through and through.
See, but isn't that weird? Because then it's not true that it was through and through. Because if it was through and through, then that's just the entirety of you. And
okay,
there
it wasn't
you are.
literally through and through.
No, but I'm trying to get to a weird view we have of morality in America at the moment. I've heard someone from India kind of opposing it. It was cool to get this other country's view on it. That we view a lot of people as like good people, bad people. Like, this is the label we have on you. But this guy, he put up the view of like, no. I see whether I look at like what you're doing now. Are you being good or bad now? Right? And he's giving the example of criminals. That a lot of people in prison, they probably made some mistake because, like with the racism and the poor parenting examples earlier, I just didn't know. Like, literally based on my life, with all the experience and facts that I've built up, or so thought facts. That's definitely not how you say that. Anyway, the facts I thought I had up to this point led me to this conclusion. Like, obviously I would rob this person. That's what you do. That's like the world I live in. But like, no. If you just change this person's view of reality, give them facts or some truth, then, oh my God, they become a, quote, good person. But then what does that really mean? Like, you kind of write someone off if you just call them good or bad person, as if they're irredeemable. But I kind of like the view of, you just made a poor choice at that time, or you just made a good choice at that time, right? Like, someone you can call a, quote, good person can make terrible choices in a different context.
No, I feel like it's given too much light to people who make bad decisions. You know, like, there are people who make bad decisions knowingly. Like, I know this is going to hurt that person, but I'm going to do it anyway. Or even worse, like, I'm going to do it specifically to hurt that person.
But that gets weird, right? In the example of killing someone, right? in different contexts, hurting a person is good. Like there's a good way to do it. And so what's bad about it exactly? I'm hurting them because it brings me joy. And then is that always bad? Is it always bad to hurt someone else to get joy brought to yourself? If so, why?
I would say so, yeah.
I'm thinking when I say that now of like I've heard in the SEAL teams, they very often like tear each other to shreds. Their sense of humor is like most people would call it bullying. Yes. But in that community, it works. Like I'm tearing you to fucking shreds, but that's just what we do here. It's like we just love that.
I feel like it's different though, where it's like bullying versus like saying something that'll actually get to them and hurt their feelings. Like bullying versus like, oh, I'm trying to make my team member cry right now.
That's no, like, okay, I've heard sometimes in the teams, if you make a mistake, like let's say you misfire your gun on a mission, I hear a lot of the people who do a mistake that bad will leave the teams because they'll just get bullied so intensely. Like if they ever bring up a point in a conversation, it's like, shut the fuck up. What the fuck are you doing? They'll come up with nicknames that are just terrible.
Gotcha. Just the constant ridicule.
Like, and maybe there's a goodness to that. Like it's filtering out it's culling the herd, right?
I don't know if I would say that's a good idea because culling the herd in a mass population would just be suicide at that point. Can't check out of life, you know?
Wait. Culling the herd in a mass population is just suicide.
Well, yeah, because you're saying culling the herd as in they're leaving the SEALs teams. How do you apply that to regular society? What are they leaving? Like if you're just getting bullied because you're living, it's just like, okay, I'm gonna just leave the team.
Well, that might be okay. Let's say in a friend group, right? Someone's being a dick,
Right?
And the other friends kind of like hone in on them and get kind of angry with them and maybe start insulting them. I'm not saying that's the best way to go about it, but it might be a sort of like defense mechanism.
I feel like you got to be in a certain situation where that's okay, though.
Yeah, for sure.
Like it takes a certain environment to be okay with that.
And my point being that maybe some of the people who hurt someone to feel good, their life up to that point led them to believe that that this is the context where it is good to hurt someone for my own pleasure. This is I don't know whether that's shooting a rubber band at some kid's eye in school because they wear funny glasses. Like, okay, that's probably bad, right? But maybe that kid's life has led them to believe it's good. And to just call that kid like, oh, you're a bad kid, you're a piece of shit. It makes like, is that the best way to go about that? I don't know.
No, shame isn't typically a good teacher, but it doesn't mean it's not needed.
At times, right? Like, because sometimes I've been very usefully shamed.
Or it's like, oh, I feel bad because people are making me feel bad, but I should have felt bad beforehand and not have done it.
Yeah, it's like,
so now this just replaces the thing. Like you can't like scaring a kid into not doing something. It's just like, okay, yeah, maybe they should realize they shouldn't do it themselves, but being scared and having them not do it equates the same thing. They're just not doing it.
Right, and even with that, it's the balance of the moment.
Like they don't need to understand. Like everyone doesn't need to understand the reasoning behind everything all the time.
Yeah, for sure.
Like it's just like, okay, yeah, I somewhat lied to you by changing your perception of the situation, but it's like if I just didn't have time to explain everything right then and there.
Man, that can get weird. Oh, doubt. You know what? Okay, you want to take a smoke break?
Yeah, sure.
All right, cool. Then I have this fucking super heavy question I've been thinking of lately.